Hi all, welcome to another edition of Tech Sambak. In this edition, I'm fortunate to have Molly with me. A little bit of a background. I've been working with a Stealth AI app for the last 3, 4 months. Believe me, it's an amazing app. I'm just waiting when it hits the market. But believe me, if it comes, I'm sure it will make a name for itself. Right now, it's in a stealth mode. I have the product manager for the app, Molly, with me, and I've interacted with him for the last couple of months, and I always found all my interactions quite informative. And I thought, okay, why not get him here as part of the podcast? He has a great brain on what's happening all around us, and let's pick his brain and get to know about the AI world. And I have certain set of questions, and we'll get started. But before that, Molly, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey, my name is Maudi. I have about 22 years of experience. Did grad school in the US, came back to India, spent about 10 years in engineering, doing some VLSI, CAD and stuff, and then moved to product management. Spent a lot of time in travel-related startups, GoIbibo, Stayzilla, Travenue, Ixigo, and then 4 years at Microsoft, and then more recently into the current startup that I'm in. As Shubhankar said, we're a consumer AI startup. We're still in stealth, um, but we are having a alpha set of early stage users. And Shubhankar was introduced to us by one of our common friends, and he's been a very um, regular user of ours during these stages. Regular users are the ones we learn a lot from. So thank you, Shubhankar.
So when do we see the release of full and final version coming out in the market? Because to me, it looks the product is there. You just have to announce it. Oh,
Looking at about 2, 3 months from now, we're almost there.
okay.
Um,
Hmm.
the thing being, while it does seem feature complete to a large extent, a lot of things that we need to do to make it globally ready. This will
Hmm.
be a global launch. We have to also
Hmm.
make sure that there are several privacy, security, compliance, and all of that stuff done so before we release. So for users like you and me, for alpha users, some of those are taken care of by our terms and conditions. But when we go out into the market, we need to be a lot more solid.
Absolutely. Great. I'm looking forward to that. So before that, thanks for being part of this podcast. And here comes my first question. So uh, looks like a deluge of models everywhere. So for a common person who actually is a person who works in his office and wants to learn more about, okay, because there are a lot of models out there. We have chat GPTs, and every big organization is coming with 2 to 3 models in a month, or in 2 weeks you will have 2 to 3 releases from OpenAI, Claude that not that much, but from Google is doing a good job. Then we have Grok. How do we know, okay, which one is a good model to use?
That's a very valid problem at this point in time because if you step back and think about what are these models and how are they created, typically these models are what are called large language models, and large language models are networks of neural nets which are trained, pre-trained, and then got into a point where at the root of it, essentially, like a lot of they're predicting the next word or the next token, but then
Hmm.
when you step back
Hmm.
and look at it, it is providing you answers from what its neural nets have been trained on,
Hmm.
right? So all
Hmm.
of these models, when they are getting trained, if you look at them, each one of them have varied ways by which they get trained. And each one of
Hmm.
them have varied um, parameters in which they get trained. And each one of them have varied data sets for which they are getting trained. So there are multiple of these parameters. And that's why if
Hmm.
you see each model has its own strengths, weaknesses. In fact, I would even
Hmm.
go to an extent saying some of them have a personality of their own. If you
Hmm.
look at
Hmm.
ChatGPT, it's typically very professional, very to the
Hmm.
point. Grok is usually very brash. It's like that teenage
Brash.
kid. Um, um, Llama is this thing which assumes that you will not know anything and I'll have to explain everything to you. Um,
Okay.
Claude is this very polite, oh, don't worry, I will teach you everything kind of personality. I mean, you go home and see all of these, you will actually say like, that's right. I mean, because each of these have
Yeah,
been
absolutely.
trained in that way, right? Similarly, each of these, I mentioned parameters. These are
Mhm,
weights and parameters that in which these training happens, and because
mhm,
of
mhm,
which some models are trained more rigorously on coding. Some of them are more
mhm,
rigorous on content writing. Some of them more on
mhm,
reasoning. Some of them on various other things. For images, some image models are great for
mhm,
photorealistic rendering. Some image models are
mhm,
great for cartooning and so on. So yes, at this point in time, there is a deluge of models. There are a few which are general purpose high strength models. But then there are a ton of them out there who are all have their own strengths and weaknesses, right? It is unfortunate at this point in time that a lot of folks don't know about these large number of models and think there are only three or four of these models. In fact, I would hazard a guess to say that a lot of people don't even know three or four. They say ChatGPT.
mhm.
ChatGPT is becoming
ChatGPT,
like that. ChatGPT is like that verb. It's
Xerox.
like that Xerox thing. Exactly. Right? I mean, they would be using Claude, but it's actually ChatGPT. Or they would be
Yes.
using Gemini. I mean, Gemini is trying a it's trying very hard to integrate it into the Google-esque environment. If you're using Google Docs, if you're using Google Sheets, it all is woven in if you have a paid subscription and so on. There is also this unfortunate problem of you get a lot of the power of each of these models, especially these top four or five, only if you pay, right? But
Mhm.
how much will you pay? I mean, how many $20
No,
subscriptions will you plunk?
absolutely.
Which is making sense for the model creators because they are spending enormous amounts of money in these
Mhm,
pre-training and training things in
mhm,
inferencing because these require humongous amounts of GPU investments. A lot of them have
mhm,
their own data centers which do only this and so on. But then if you think about the common man, if you want AI to become like the Google of like 15 years ago, where if you wanted to know
mhm,
something, you go and type it in Google. Are we there yet? Yeah, I mean, like I think consumer grade AI is great. And that's the area in which we are working. But without something like that, you are left to a few
mhm.
things that you're either paid for or you know of.
Talking about the AIs, the consumer AIs that we have, uh, there are many models, as I mentioned earlier. So, how do we know which one is better for which job? Uh, I'm sure you said that different models have been trained differently. Llama is actually takes care of you just like a mother. uh, Grok is brash. ChatGPT is gentle. So we get their behavior, but for example, do I know, okay, if I want to do a specific task, for example, I want to do a analysis, which model can give me the best result based on the training? And as you are part of the consumer AI industry, how do you benchmark, how do you know which model is good for what?
So there are a few ways, right? At this point in time, until you wait for our product to come out, the only way essentially is twofold. One is you go try out each one of these or whichever you get to know of, and then it's a trial and error thing, and then you figure out. I know somebody who by mistake figured out Quencoder. Quencoder is an amazing programming model that nobody even knows about. But then since he got to know
Alibaba.
that Quencoder,
uh,
yeah, Alibaba, Quencoder is what he uses permanently right now, right? The other way is basically there
mhm,
are leaderboards out there and leaderboards such as Chatbot Arena. If you go on Google or
yeah.
Chatbot Arena, and there are a few others, LMSys, and some of these. These are Chatbot Arena is a University of California Berkeley research project. They try
Mm,
and do some benchmarking and actually try it, and then you know
mhm,
they rank these models on a leaderboard.
mm,
Um, Unfortunately, that these are not as reliable as it should be, but
mm,
it's the only thing out there right now, right? Zuck himself has actually said in a couple of interviews recently that those leaderboards can be gamified and so on. Right? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
they can
There's a
pre-train a model
news.
to actually win in later in chatbot arena, get it all up. There was this huge controversy a couple of weeks back where Llama 4
Llama
was
4.
correct,
Yes.
and then it came back, and then you see, like what was released to arena was different from what Llama 4 was actually released to the public. So all of that stuff is doable, but that's the only thing that is available right now. Um, and the reason why it's gameable rather, is that the rating is actually done by a small set of enthusiastic people who are AI enthusiasts who go and do blind testing on different models and say, I like this better, I like that better, I like this better, I like that better. So if you see, it's a very small set of people on a certain set of benchmarks doing a certain thing on a certain model. It is not at scale. But current state of the art is essentially whenever somebody releases, whenever the Sundar releases, or Josh Woodward releases something in Gemini, or anybody releases anything, their announcement always says, "Hey, we are number three on Chatbot Arena. We were like number three, number two in Alliances,
Mm,
or we debuted as the number one in this category, and so on."
mhm.
So that's the only way right now. But for the sake of a common user, um, that leaderboard also has a way by which you can say what's the top model for programming, what's the top model for
Mm,
content, what's the top model, and then if you choose to
mm.
believe that leaderboard, you can actually pick the top three or four, and then choose to go to their website and then go and try out stuff.
Wow. And talking about the gap, there is a talk that all the models have become commodities. So, what's the gap do you see between an open source model and a proprietary model? Maybe a Llama 3.5 or 3 to versus a Grok 3.
So
Is it
that
coming
very
down?
yeah, no, there's a nuance over here. Okay, I mean the open sourceness is essentially some companies open sourcing their weights.
Mm,
Okay. So if you
okay.
are actually so it's not so you could actually download the model, you have the weights and you can run it yourself. But then if you think about the inferencing and the actual usage of some of these models, and the user experience that some of these companies have just put in, it is humongous. I mean, I'll be the first one to admit that ChatGPT or Claude for that matter, the user experience, the way people type stuff in, the way history is managed, the way it understands
Mhm,
you, the way there's a lot more than just an API call and a response that is rendered onto the
mhm,
screen, right? Um,
mhm,
so I think yes, it's a commodity, but it being a commodity does not necessarily mean that everything is gone. That's how I would actually say it. Um, it's open source, it's available, means it will actually be hosted in multiple areas now. It'll be
mhm,
hosted in Open Router, it will be hosted in Grok with a Q, so many others
mhm.
where it will be hosted, which is actually a great thing, right? Or
Yeah.
companies like I was talking to somebody in one of the messaging platforms recently in India. They run Llama locally because they have to do a lot of LLMs on WhatsApp, and the integration with Llama and WhatsApp is so much more seamless. So that way, you're not
Mhm,
tied, or you don't have to do unnatural things to actually
mhm,
go and force fit another model into it and so on. And I mean, open source models, small language models, all of these, the way I'm seeing it is we are already surrounded in our world by thousands, if not millions of
thousand.
AIs all around us, right? Some
Mm,
of them are open AI calls.
mm,
Some of them are small models which are trained for a
mm,
certain subset of
yes.
tasks. Some of them are tool use calls. Some of them are, um, you know, it's an operator kind of call which will operate your
Mm.
computer for you. Um,
Yeah.
it is all around us. I think it
Yes.
behooves us to not be shocked because it is true.
Mm,
It is what it is. Um,
mhm,
the fundamental premise of what we are doing in our company, and I can say that out. is in this time um, where we are surrounded by AIs and we're going to be surrounded by more and more AIs.
More AI.
I think it is time we just need to be having a symbiotic relationship between humans and AIs.
Mm,
We help AIs become better. We have to teach AIs to know what is right, what is wrong, what is profanity, what is a correct
mm,
answer in a coding question, what makes a
mhm,
great content writing thing. We have to teach it. You have to give
mhm,
feedback. And the AIs become stronger and stronger and stronger so that they can actually help us more meaningfully, right? If you
mm,
do that, then you will be at a position where all around us there will be a democratic sharing of AIs, open source or not, where you will use the
mhm,
right AI for the right use, and
mhm,
you can just be much more productive that way.
mhm. Wonderful. Wonderful. So much happening in the area of AI. Now, coming back to the agents, that's the new kid in the block, and they're telling, okay, 2025 will be the era of agents. So the way I define agent is a LLM surrounded by a software which is connected to tools and database and all. Maybe that's a very primitive definition I have. So how would you define an agent, and uh, where do you see the era of the consumer AI going into that?
So the way I see it is this, right? Let's 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 take a more generic definition of agents.
Okay.
Agents are nothing but a specific task that you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
which is a combination of a sequence of deterministic steps or decisions need to be made,
Mm-hmm.
combined with intelligence that is required for that.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, I want to buy a cell phone. I want to buy a mobile phone. Um, the set of deterministic actions that I would probably do is I would go to Amazon.com. I would put in some filters. I would put in a certain um, range of pricing. I would put
Mm-hmm.
some brands that I like. And then now, at this point in time, if I'm not using an agent, the agent is me. I need to take a decision between the top 10 results that come on
Mm-hmm.
Amazon. That's intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it's intelligence inside here. But if
Mm-hmm.
an AI knows me, knows
Mm-hmm.
the comparative evaluation, knows exactly what kind of phone I want, what is the best thing for me, coupled with those deterministic actions and this
Mm-hmm.
intelligence, the agent will basically come back to me and say, I think this is your most preferred phone. These are two
Mm-hmm.
options.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go say, okay, I like your suggestion. I click. Then again, there is a series of deterministic actions which involve going to the cart,
Mm-hmm.
making a payment, putting in your address, getting it delivered to you. That's an agent encapsulated. This could be anything.
Okay.
This could be um, finding out, um, writing a report on top Renaissance artists.
Mm-hmm.
The intelligence that is required over here is, what does top mean? What does top mean to me? What makes a good report? What report am I writing? Am I a 10th grader
Mm-hmm.
or am I a Bachelor of Arts student? And depending
Mm-hmm.
on that, there is a series of deterministic actions. And then
Mm-hmm.
those deterministic actions is to get all of the data from the web or
Mm-hmm.
wherever it needs to get it from. And then there is
Mm-hmm.
intelligence on being able to collate that into a beautiful report. So
Absolutely.
all of this is agents. Agents can be a
Okay.
Wikipedia agent. Agent can be a YouTube agent. A YouTube
Okay.
agent would basically say, a question to an LLM could very well be, I forgot the measurements to do for an eggless vanilla sponge cake. A YouTube
Okay.
agent will actually open up the YouTube. It will know who the YouTuber that I always follow, clip exactly the place where the ingredients are coming in. It would
Uh-huh.
transcribe it below and say, this is what you want. That's a YouTube agent.
Uh-huh.
There could be a news agent, there could be a weather agent. So this is deterministic stuff, information. intelligence to do a specific task, right?
Okay, and
So
it can be
basically, made
autonomous. Yeah,
it could be if I wanted to be, I could have an agent to get my kind of news delivered to me every day in the morning.
yeah,
You could already do that in ChatGPT right now.
yes,
I could go and say, troll the web, get me all the most important things, give me a digest every day in the morning,
money.
right? That's an agent. That's an agent by itself. So if you think about it, agents are the equivalent of apps or
Hmm.
macros or whatever in the earlier eras,
Earlier
essentially.
world. Yeah,
Correct. Exactly. I
the
mean,
close.
and you are these are the apps of the AI era, so to speak. People, yes, some of them are commodity. Look at the Android app ecosystem. You want to do a to-do list, there are 10,000 of them.
Yeah.
If you think about it, there are 10,000 agents to do the same thing now as well.
Yeah, so nice definition. Agents are the apps of the AI era. Quite. That will actually stick to my mind and nicely put. Molly, what do you think? Because I work in a corporate setup, I get this question. AI doesn't give me the right answer. Oh my God, AI, I put in something, AI just gave me crap. Most of it because, prompt engineering is a thing and the question might be wrong. There is still an apprehension which I see amongst everybody. I go to school, colleges to give lectures. Their professors come to me and tell, okay, Shubhankar, our AI people are doing their homework using AI. It has spoiled the education system. So, what's your feedback on that? What do you say on that?
It's a very, very valid conversation to have. Um, I feel everybody needs to become conversant with AIs. The whole thing about I put in something and AI gave me junk was 2.5 years ago when ChatGPT 2.5 came. The current AIs are far more superior. It doesn't require that much amount of prompt engineering, as people say. Um, it is as good as the way I say I talk about prompt engineering is the follows, right? Um, if you want, let's say, an answer from somebody who's an expert in something. Let's say I want to know like I see a bird and I want to know which bird it is. If I want to go to an ornithologist and ask that question, I would basically go and say, I live in Bangalore,
Mm.
I'm in Kormangla, I have trees outside in the middle of an apartment complex, and I see this brown bird with a black beak. Can you tell me what it is? That's prompt engineering. If you
Mm.
think it is some complex magic, it is not. So if you want to ask
Mm.
an AI something, you say, imagine you are a product manager, you are working in a company which does give only that much data that is required. No need to give confidential information. I'm working on a consumer AI product. I'm working on growth in how to penetrate college markets in India. Can you give me some steps? I challenge you. You'll get some fantastic results. And then at the end of it, say, can you please crunch this into a two-pager so that I can share with my team and get comments? It generates a two-pager for you, right? Become conversant with it. I think when people said, oh, become conversant with Google, it just happened automatically because Google and internet, especially in large parts of the world, came synonymously together. So people were
Yeah.
like, oh, the first question was, oh, there is internet. So what can I do with it? The natural question was, go to Google and ask something. It'll get you. That was what it was 10
Mm.
years ago, 14 years ago. Now, with AI, it's the same thing. You have AI, people are saying, what should I do with it? Any question that you have, go ask it, right? Just get
Mm.
conversant with it. Don't need to get into the nitty-gritty details of it. If you're confused with the multiple AIs around you, use one AI. Get used to it. AI is not going to go away. AI is something that's going to stick. The more conversant you are with AIs, the better it is you are. Um, in fact, let me throw an even more controversial statement here. Even Google and internet was okay. There was a time when um, office assistants were asked, "Do you know how to handle a computer?" I don't know if you remember those days, Suvankar.
Yes, yes, I do.
And the people who said, "Yes, I know how to handle," and this is not doing fancy stuff. This is not programming. I know how to handle a computer. Stood out. This is exactly that stage with AI. People are going to, in interviews, when you go and you say, like, "Do you know how to do ChatGPT? Do you know how to use AI?" And then, like, if 70% people are saying, "No, I have never had a chance," and 30% are saying, "Yes, I have used it for my personal use," 30% stand a better chance. Everybody should be using AI right now. Get conversant with it. You don't need to become a power user, but if you use it regularly enough, I guarantee you it is so helpful that you will become a power user. A request, you mentioned professors and colleges, a request to professors, colleges, college students, um, college ambassadors listening to this podcast, please spread the word around. Everybody should be using AI. Not everybody who's using AI is using it for bad purposes. Yes, there is plagiarism. I urge professors to get around it. There is instead of avoiding it. Give questions that even if they use ChatGPT will test their understanding. Rather
Absolutely.
than give the usual thing and say like no using ChatGPT. People are going to use ChatGPT anyway. Um, but figure out ways around it. There are already schools in the US which actually say use of AI is encouraged for this assignment.
Absolutely.
Become that. And that is how you get the next generation involved in something that's going to be bread and butter in the next few years. That's my request to
Yeah.
everybody. If you are using
A-
AI, spread the word that everybody should use AI.
Absolutely. And all the big leaders like Satya Nadella, he actually comes and tells, okay, how his AI, he helps him to write emails, sends drafts, and all. So that's one. And one small query on that. So, how do we pacify those who think, okay, there is hallucination? Have you seen any trends in hallucination? Is it coming down, or how do we take care of that? Because end of it, the human intervention is still required. Do you think we should get rid of it, or it should be there?
So at this point in time, AI is still an assistant. I would say that. I mean, I think I would be inaccurate if I say there are no hallucinations. Yes, hallucinations are coming down, but at the end of the day, LLMs are next token predictors.
Mm.
So there will be chances that it can spin off in a direction which is not the direction that you want. So there has to be somebody who will have to take a look. And that's why even now, if you see operator, ChatGPT operator, and all of those, even in the demo from OpenAI, it will go make the booking and then stop at the payment page and say,
And
you click that button to pay. I will do everything else, but that pay button you click, right?
uh,
So I think at this point in time, it's okay. But then the vast majority of AI applications aren't that dangerous that if you miss I mean, if you see a hallucination, you start a new chat and then it doesn't hallucinate and you're good to go. I mean, how many times have you restarted your Windows PC because it did something stupid, right? I mean, it
absolutely.
is that. If you're working on something top secret in the defense department or something like that, and you are worried about this, you obviously wouldn't be using it.
Yeah.
But to write an email, to write a one pager, if you want to critique a PM draft, if you
Uh,
want to create copy for like your
uh,
UI,
uh,
um, you're trying out stuff, you're asking it to do options. You don't get it, move to another model. That's the
mm,
beauty of it, right? Claude doesn't give you
mm.
much. Go to Llama, doesn't give you
Doesn't.
much. Move to OpenAI.
Uh,
There's so
yeah.
many options out there. I
Absolutely.
think we're making too much out of this hallucination thing. I think yes, but you have to take another look at it. Humans cannot be taken away
Yes.
in critical situations. But for non-critical situations, I think we should be okay.
I totally agree with you because for the viewers and the listeners, do follow Ethan Malik. He is a very well-known professor. He actually speaks about tolerance. Even in engineering field, we have the concept of tolerance, where if the product is not perfect, we do give some tolerance to that product, and he says that why don't you think AI to be that? He agrees that AI are trained, they can go in their own direction, but most of the AIs have actually settled down. What he says over the last 2.5 years have become much more dependable. I would strongly recommend that everyone should go and try it out and use it and make it part of your life. And that's what I've been doing, and that's what I've been propagating. So, guys, with that, I think we are on the top of time. Wish this conversation could have continued on and on, but I believe Molly had some other uh, engagement. So, thank you, Molly, for being part of this podcast. What I want to do is invite you again, maybe after 3 months, because this field is ever changing. What is relevant today will become highly irrelevant after 3 months. So we'll take a stock of that then. Until then, thanks a lot for your time, and hope you have a good day.
Thank you so much, Shankar.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thanks a lot.